and thanks for joining us on the news on NTA International. I'm Elizabeth Omori. Now let's take the headlines. Finance ministers and central bank governors of West African Monetary Union condemned renaming of Save France as ECO by 2020. President Buhari poised to address the plight of Nigerian women as he inaugurates new head of office building of the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs in Abuja. Federal government signs agreement for efficiency on migration and development in Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us. Now let's begin with the ECO currency. Finance ministers and central bank governors of the West African Monetary Union have condemned the decision by chairman of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the West African Economic and Monetary Union to unilaterally rename the Save France as ECO by 2020. Chimobi Walter Naji reports that they made this position known in Abuja after an extraordinary meeting on the ECOWAS single currency chaired by the Minister of Economy and Finance, Federal Republic of Guinea, Mamadi Kamara.
Sometime in December 2019, the media space was greeted with news of the pronouncement by 8 member nations of the French-speaking part of ECOWAS on the adoption and subsequent change of their currency name from CFA France to ECO by the year 2020. Now, this decision formed the basis of a discourse at this extraordinary meeting of the Ministers of Finance and the Governors of Central Banks of the West African Monetary Zone on the ECOWAS single currency program. Now, the meeting, among other things, condemned the action, stating that it is not in line with the decisions of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of ECOWAS for the adoption of the ECO as the name of an independent single currency.
WAM's Convergence Council reiterates the importance for all ECOWAS member countries to adhere to the decisions of the ECOWAS Authority Heads of States and Government towards the implementation of the revised roadmap of the ECOWAS single currency program.
The WAM's Convergence Council, in a communique, recommends that an extraordinary summit of the Authority of Heads of States and Government of the WAM's member states be convened soon to discuss the matter and other related issues. Now in Abuja, I'm Chimobi Walter Naji, NTA News.
For more financial stories, let's now join Musa Babaliu.
President Muhammadu Buhari nominates Dr. Kingsley Isitua Obiora as Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. His name has been forwarded to the Senate for confirmation. In a letter to President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, President Buhari says the nomination was in accordance with the provision of Section 812 of the Central Bank of Nigeria Act 2007. Away from that, the United Nations Development Programme UNDP and Agriculture Organization FAO are seeking government's partnership towards boosting agricultural activities in the Northeast, particularly the Lake Chad Basin. Some of the major activities proposed in the program include irrigation for cultivation of rice, sorghum and vegetables, ruminant animal breeding, fish farming, cotton, groundnut and soya beans. The proposal was presented to the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Muhammadu Sabonanunu, in Abuja.
President Muhammadu Buhari will depart Abuja Friday for London to participate in the inaugural UK-Africa Investment Summit holding on Monday, January 20, 2020. Hosted by the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, the event, according to the organizers, is expected to bring together African leaders, international business chief executives, and heads of international organizations to create new partnerships that will deliver more investments and jobs to the benefit of people and businesses in African countries and the United Kingdom. In a statement signed by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina says, apart from highlighting new perspectives on UK-Africa Partnership for Prosperity, issues of sustainable finance, infrastructure, trade and investment, future African growth sectors, clean energy and climate are expected to dominate presentations and discussions during the summit. With the expected takeoff of the African Continental Free Trade Area in mid-2020, the London Investment Summit will provide Nigeria with the opportunity to project itself as a leading investment destination for new industries. The summit will deepen Nigeria-United Kingdom investment ties post-Brexit, given that Africa currently represents just 2% of British trade activity, with Nigeria accounting for only 10% of that total. The Nigerian delegation to the investment meeting will further administration will do everything within its power towards addressing the socio-economic pressures inhibiting young girls in Nigeria from either enrolling in schools or completing their education, describing it as worrisome and counterproductive. This was while inaugurating the new head office building of the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs in Abuja. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
Conceived in 2006 as National Children's Library and Resource Center and converted to the headquarters of the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs in 2013, work on the magnificent cylindrical edifice of 6 floors was only executed in the last 1 year in furtherance of the Buhari presidency's focus on completing abandoned projects. Women in Nigeria now have a conducive environment for effective articulation of policies towards addressing their needs, as well as mainstreaming their rights, privileges and concerns alongside children and persons with disabilities in all strata of national development. Addressing invited guests comprising women leaders and other interest groups, President Muhammadu Buhari said his administration is committed to sustaining efforts at not only ending child marriage, but also increasing all-round education, as well as enhancing the retention of the girl child in schools.
The high level number of young girls who are out of schools or unable to complete school due to socio-economic pressure is disturbing and must be addressed. It is our collective duty to ensure that mothers of today and tomorrow are educated, encouraged, and empowered. Our quest is to ensure that concerns of women, children, and other vulnerable students are given prominence and ultimately addressed.
While commending the Minister of Women Affairs, Pauline Tallen, and her predecessors for the good work they have done and continue to do, the President is particularly happy with the Ministry's collaborative efforts at reducing incidents of human trafficking and maternal mortality.
I enjoin the Ministry to continue to champion and coordinate all matters relating to the plight of Nigerian women and the most vulnerable citizens. I assure you of my continued support and determination to see that the ministry deliver on this mandate.
There were goodwill messages by UNICEF, ministers, as well as children's representatives.
I believe that the commissioning of the new Ministry of Women's Affairs building is merely a start of a decade of advancements of human rights, in particularly the rights of women and children.
As a child, I'm here to advocate for an improved protection, development and care of all children and youth in Nigeria to prepare us to be future leaders of our dear country.
Minister of Women Affairs Pauline Tallen had earlier appreciated President Muhammadu Buhari for recognizing the role of women in nation building and supporting the completion of the head office complex of the ministry.
Supporting women is supporting the nation. God allowed you to do this because He is taking you to the next level to unfold great things that will change the history of this country.
First Lady Aisha Muhammadu Buhari was represented at the epoch-making event by a presidential aide and former Minister of Women Affairs, Dr. Hajo Sani. In Abuja, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Let's now talk security. Nasarawa State Government has expressed formal appreciation to President Muhammadu Buhari for approving the establishment of Niger Police Mobile Training School in the state, describing it as critical towards enhancing the desired security, stability and development. Governor Abdullahi Sule, who was in the State House to deliver the message on behalf of the state, also used the opportunity to brief the President on security situation in the home of solid minerals.
Training school is going to bring a lot of development to the area and is actually going to be able to stop most of the kidnappings around that particular spot and most of the problems that we have continued to see, especially at that particular spot. So that is something not only good for Nasarawa State, but the entire country, because that is the main route that people from Benue, Taraba, Cross River, Enugu, and the rest of them all follow through that road actually to come to Abuja. So for the establishment of such an institution there, we have to be very grateful to Mr. President for approving the siting of that school. As I passed there this morning, work has already started. We are very grateful to God Almighty that most of the skirmishes, most of the issues of kidnapping, banditry, armed robbery along the ways have been reduced significantly.
Governor Sule described the recently held joint security dialogue between Nasarawa and Benue states as thought-provoking and reassuring.
The representatives of the TIF and the representatives of the Miati Allah, the Fulanis who were there, and everyone actually embraced the outcome of the meeting and all that. Now, coming back specifically to what you have mentioned about having a regional police, no, we strongly believe in Nasarawa that we should start with community police, which is what we already have. And so far, so good for us.
To other matters, President Muhammadu Buhari has sent felicitations to the first interim chairman of the All Progressives Congress APC, Chief Abdul Karim Adebisi Akonde, on his 81st birthday, wishing him longer life, good health and more strength to keep serving the nation. In a statement signed by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, the President joins all members of the governing party, government, people of Osun State, family and associates of the elder statesman in celebrating the virtues of selflessness and sacrifice he consistently projects. President Buhari congratulates the former governor of Osun State for upholding the philosophy of the great nationalist, former premier of Western Region and leader of Unity Party of Nigeria, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, in advocating free education, healthcare and entrepreneurship. The President believes Chief Akonde's rich experience in public service and politics will go a long way in moving the nation forward. And still on felicitations, the All Progressives Congress celebrates its party's first interim national chairman and former governor of Osun State, Chief Adebisi Akonde, on his 81st birthday. The party, in a statement by its National Publicity Secretary, Larry Issa Onilu, recognizes the efforts of Chief Akonde alongside other founding fathers in the formation of the APC and in entrenching progressive politics in the country. The APC has tasked Baba Akonde and other members of the party recently constituted formal National Reconciliation Committee to meet with aggrieved party leaders and bring lasting peace and reconciliation across party ranks. The APC family worldwide prays that the Almighty God grants Baba Akonde good health, long life and wisdom as he continues to contribute to the growth of APC and the country. In other news, federal government of Nigeria has signed a seat agreement with ICMPD to enable the International Center for Migration Policy Development to operate with greater efficiency in the country. Here is Oninge Fineface with details of the signing.
Signing of this seat agreement marks the hallmark of a negotiation which started in 2015 between the federal government of Nigeria and the International Center for Migration Policy Development, ICMPD.
They have done a lot coordinating with all the 5 different agencies established by the federal government of Nigeria for the migration management, and a lot has been achieved. I cannot say enough for what they have done in Libya, repatriating a large number, a good number of, irregular migrants from Libya to Nigeria.
Today's signing agreement is instrumental in bringing Nigeria, the EU and its partners closer, and in validating also a partnership that has been there for many years.
The seat agreement is significant in renewing and further strengthening ICMPD's support for Nigeria in providing beneficial management of migration and movement, with focus on research, migration dialogue and capacity building.
For us, it means that it will be easier to work in Nigeria, to recruit staff, to have access to colleagues which in Nigeria without having the question, who is this organization? We can say we have a seat agreement. It gives a certain standing and status for the organization, which will help us to expand our work here.
ICMPD will also consolidate on its operations and activities within the West African sub-region as a result of this agreement. In Abuja, on NTA Fine Face, NTA News.
This is the news on NTA International, reaching you live from Abuja. Let's take a break. More reports ahead. Thanks for staying with us. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has lauded the National Youth Service Corps, NYSC, in ridding the nation, particularly youths, against corrupt practices and tendencies in the discharge of their duties. EFCC Director of Public Affairs, Osita Nwaja, made this remark when he visited the Director General of the NYSC, Brigadier General Shuaib Ibrahim, in his office in Abuja. While noting that youths are the center of development in any nation, and most government policies are tilted towards youth development, Mr. Nwaja added that the visit is to further strengthen the collaboration between the NYSC and the EFCC.
I make bold to say that if the EFCC has achieved anything, if the EFCC has achieved anything at all, the NYSC is a very critical part of that achievement. And we can only build on what we have achieved.
So I can assure you that this partnership is a good one for our country, because prevention of corruption is very, very important. And we can achieve this through the issue of enlightenment and sensitization of Nigeria on the issues of this action. So I got a call in respect of the meeting and the need and urgent for that matter for us to collaborate on the area of a match, so that we sensitize Nigerians on the evils of corruption.
Now to bilateral talks, Nigeria has reiterated a call for global peace, security and the development of humanity. At a briefing, Minister of Foreign Affairs Jeffrey Onyema informed the diplomatic community that Nigeria believes that diplomacy and high level of decorum are the viable options for resolution of disputes. This is coming at a time when the United Nations is calling for the escalation of tension between the United States and Iran. Usman Ali reports.
With a moderately large network of diplomatic missions in more than 100 countries, Nigeria has significant influence in Africa and in various multilateral fora. This briefing by Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs is all about reminding the diplomatic community about the country's foreign policy objectives, her interests and her stand on some unfolding events in the world. Nigeria says her support to the United Nations on global peace still stands, saying diplomacy is the option for any dispute rather than the use of force. Nigeria also assures the diplomats of her efforts on improving internal security, fighting terrorism, as well as opening up opportunities for relations on economic growth and development.
We are also victims of the catastrophic effect of climate change and are therefore fully engaged with global climate action. Lake Chad, which was a source of livelihood for almost 30 million people, has shrunk by about 90%. And a possible solution, of course, to that real catastrophe would be to recharge it from the Ubangi River, which flows from the Central African Republic through the two Congos into the Atlantic.
Looking at the vision of Africa on the project Silencing the Gun in 2063, the Foreign Affairs Minister called on the United Nations to enforce reforms to include at least 3 African countries on Security Council. In Abuja, Usman Aliu, NTA News.
Let's now talk human rights. Debates on rights of persons living with disabilities have raged for long, but translating outcomes of such discussions into concrete action for implementation have remained a challenge. On the occasion of the ECOWAS Human Rights Day in Abuja, stakeholders took a step further to fine-tune a process of actualizing more friendly educational framework for this class of persons. Kelvin Elunwai reports.
What the forum is seeking is a strategy that will translate policy to action in a creative but opportunity-laden framework for deploying formal and vocational education policies as a means for engaging persons with disabilities, IDPs and returnees to be part of development plan.
We should continue to conscientize Nigerian citizenry about the importance of this segment of the society that seems to be neglected as it were.
If you look at the contextual issues around crisis in most of our member states, returnees are finding it difficult to access education.
That's one of the key ways we can create economic opportunities for them. It's the foundation for everything they can do with their life.
ECOWAS, Center for Democracy and Development, and other partners are hopeful that when these new strategies are adopted, most of the impediments to an all-inclusive educational system will be eliminated. In Abuja, Kelvin Elunwai, NTA News.
Now to stories making headlines in other parts of the world. Let's join Uche Ogochukwu as our guide.
Hello there. Egypt, Ethiopia and Sudan have reached an initial agreement on the filling and operation of a mega dam being built on the River Nile. A joint statement by the three countries, along with the US and the World Bank, says negotiators had agreed to fill the reservoir of the Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam during the rainy season between the months of July and August. A final deal will be signed on 28-29 January when ministers from the three countries meet again in Washington. The United States has called for a new approach to address the growing instability in Mali. The U.S. Deputy Ambassador to the UN Security Council, Charity Norman, called for the 15,000-strong peacekeeping force to be reduced in size. She said it was time to recognize that peacekeeping missions were not the answer to the growing terrorist threat in Mali, and criticized both the government and armed groups for failing to implement a 2015 peace deal. Outside Africa, Russia's lawmakers approved Mikhail Mishustin as prime minister in a lower house vote less than 24 hours after President Vladimir Putin nominated him for the role. Mishustin received 383 votes of 424 casts in a victory that had been all but assured when he won the unanimous backing of his party, which has a strong majority in the chamber. Mishustin's elevation is part of a sweeping shake-up of the political system announced by Putin on Wednesday, which led to the resignation of Dmitry Medvedev as prime minister along with his government. That's it from here. I am Uche Ogochukwu.
Thank you, Uche. Now to sports. Minister of Sports pledges reward for outstanding Nigerian athletes